Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacey. Real people, real issues in real estate. This is our Leaders and Legends segment, and joining us by phone today is guest Diane Helbig. She's a certified personal coach, president of Seize This Day, and an author. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
So, Diane, talking about, I know you have a couple of books, first of all. Expert Insight is one of them, and Lemonade Stand Selling. Why the reference to the lemonade stand?
Thanks for asking that question. It's really because I believe that selling is as simple as it was when we had a lemonade stand as a child, and that we should keep that in mind because I think people overcomplicate the whole process of selling and then don't do it.
Keeping it simple. In fact, you say that sales is not about selling. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Certainly. So what I mean by that is that sales is really about matching a solution to a problem. It's not about trying to explain everything that's great about your product or service and hoping that people will buy into that, or thinking that you have to persuade them or cajole them, convince them, any of those things that were sort of old-fashioned sales. It's sort of the way sales used to be. So it's really about discovery and finding out what is going on with a person or a company and then matching what you've got to what's going on with them. And if you can't, you're not going to sell to them. So it's really that discovery and matching.
Oh, my God. I already love this because I find so many salespeople kind of like just throw up their value proposition, not even knowing what exactly you're looking for. Exactly.
And they think they've made the decision already that you need what they have, and they have no idea whether you do or not. So it's off-putting.
Yes, that's awesome. People struggle with creating an effective elevator pitch. So what is your formula for creating one?
Okay. So I think a good elevator pitch has to do with value and results. So if someone says, this is who I am, this is who I'm with, this is the value I bring to whom with this result, first of all, it'll be way less than 30 seconds. It'll be way less than the 2 minutes that oftentimes we hear from people. And the last thing people hear is the results. And that's really what they care about. They don't care about how you do it. They don't care about how long you've been in business or any of that stuff until they know what the result is that you bring. That's what piques their interest.
I love that. The value I bring with this result. Okay, I love it. You talk about the importance of value. So elaborate on what you mean by that.
Okay. I think you can't sell unless you really understand the value of your product or service as the other person sees it. So a lot of times what we do is we go into business and we think we have something that's really valuable and we think we know why it's valuable. And that's dangerous because if the value that we see in it isn't the same as the value that our prospect sees, we're not going to be able to sell to them because we're going to message in a way that they're not going to hear. So it's really important that we understand why someone finds value in what it is we have to sell. We can create our marketing message around that. We can communicate more clearly with them. We can ask the right questions of them to really be able to hone in on how we can play a role in helping them with whatever it is that we sell.
Wow, that's great. Let's talk about networking. What is some advice you have for how salespeople or anybody can network more effectively?
I would say the biggest piece of advice I would give people is to remember that networking is really about building relationships with people who may or may not need what you have to sell. So it's not about selling. You're not going to sell while you're out networking. It's not about telling people about what it is that you sell. It's really just relationship building.
I love that.
Meeting a couple of people. That's it.
That's really interesting because I recruit for a living. I own real estate companies, and I go to a ton of networking events, and I always run into other people that are in my business. And I have this thing, I will not recruit at an event. I'll go to meet people and create a relationship so they'll take my phone call later, but never recruit. And I see others that go out and they're like trying to do business at the networking event. And I'm like, wow, nobody even wants to make eye contact with those type of people.
Right. Right, that's right. You avoid those people.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. What kind of advice do you have for somebody that's needs to get out and network to build their business, but they're shy or introverted?
Well, it is my belief that introverts make the best networkers because they're introverts, because they don't want to talk about themselves, because they don't want to be the one who's responsible for carrying on the conversation, and which is the best thing in networking, because really you should go and ask a question and then listen to the answer, and so that your next questions come from, it should be an open-ended question, and your next questions can come from that. So the great thing for introverts is they don't have to do a lot of talking.
Yes.
All they have to do is ask a question and then let the other person talk.
Right.
Unless you end up talking to another introvert, then it might get a little awkward.
That could be a little awkward. Very quiet.
So I know you believe that there are things people are doing wrong when selling. Can you share some of the things that people are doing incorrectly?
Sure. I think the first thing people are doing incorrectly is talking before asking. So they walk into the sales meeting and the prospect says, so tell me about your company, and then they do. And they go on and on and on and on. And don't. I mean, just stop, right? What, in my opinion, they should do is say, I'd be happy to. Would you mind if I asked you some questions first? And then I can really frame what it is about our company that would be valuable to you without telling you everything, because you don't necessarily want to know everything. That's probably a better way of doing it. The other thing that people do is they walk in with literature and PowerPoint presentations and all of this stuff that, frankly, their prospect doesn't care about. The prospect has a problem. They need a solution to it. That's what they care about. Focus in on that, and you'll be much better off. Don't tell them everything you do. They're not going to hear it. They're not going to remember it. They're only going to hear the thing that directly relates to the problem they're having right now.
Yes. The other thing I think is that sometimes they're already sold on you. I just was talking to a top real estate agent, and he does things, he's more successful than most real estate sales professionals. And he said, the one thing I do when I go on a listing appointment is I ask the customer, the seller up front, if they want to get right to the paperwork, like list the house, or do they want me to tour the property and go through all of my marketing stuff? Because he said 30% of the time, they've already made a decision before I walk through the door, so why would I spend 2 hours trying to sell them on myself? Because by doing so, you could actually kill the sale.
It's so true. You talk people out of buying from you.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So let's talk about at a sales appointment. How do you think a salesperson should conduct themselves during the sales appointment?
I think the best thing that a salesperson can do is take with them written down a list of questions that they want answers to. And I think those questions should go beyond the solution that they bring. So, for example, I think they should ask questions like, what is your decision-making process? What is your timeline for this? Have you engaged someone like me in the past? And if they have, what did they like about it? What would they, if they could have had anything different, what would that be? You know, if there were things that they could have had that they didn't actually experience. Why are they not currently engaging with that company now? You know, if they've used them before, why are they seeking another company? You know, what's really important to them? Are they, you know, on the list of priorities, what's at the top? What's their budget?
Right.
You know, people are so afraid to ask for a budget. Listen, people might not tell you, but then you can have that conversation with them about, okay, well, if I tell you that we could help you out and it would be $500, or we could help you out and be $5,000, where do you fall in the middle of that?
Yes.
You know? Because you need to know, and what you're trying to find out is A, how they work, but also if they really want to work with you. If they're not going to give you this information, they're probably price shopping. They don't necessarily want to work with you because clients know they have to give all the information to a vendor in order to be able to get the best answer and you know, proposal from a vendor.
Yes. All right. We're only 9 minutes in, and I've already taken like a whole page of notes. So first of all, for anybody listening to today's program, this is Diane Helbig of Seize This Day. You can check out her book and check out her website at seizethisday.com. seizethisday.co. So seizethisday.co. I'm going to go through a quick recap of just my notes. And then I have a few more questions for Diane. But basically what Diane says is, first of all, sales is about matching a solution to a problem, not just kind of throwing out all of your value proposition. She talked about elevator pitch, and that your elevator pitch has to be the value you bring with a particular result. So not just about the value, but also about the result. You also talked about when you are presenting value, that you have to think about it from the eyes of the customer, so not necessarily from your own eyes. We talked about networking and why introverts make the best networkers, and in networking, building relationships, not selling. I love the whole concept of going on a sales appointment, and before spitting out the value proposition, ask first, and all kinds of questions to ask so that we can properly match a solution to the problem, which goes back to the very beginning. A couple more questions for you before we wrap up. Let's talk about cold calling. Most people avoid it, yet it seems necessary. What are your thoughts on cold calling?
Yeah, I think you probably absolutely, everyone at some point is going to have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
My viewpoint is that you should have a real plan for how you're going to cold call. I don't think we should be doing it via email initially.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to pick up a phone and we have to call people. I don't think it should be dialing for dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should know as much as you can about the organization or person, that it should fit what you think looks like a good prospective client, and you should have that, I'll say script, but really that intention of what it is you're going to talk about when you have them either on the phone or in a voicemail.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you have to leave a voicemail, this is where you can say, I'm going to follow up this voicemail with an email, basically detailing the same thing in case that's a better way for you to communicate.
This is
okay.
Yeah, this
See
is
what I mean?
Yeah, this is awesome, and I know it's going to bring me to the next question. I cold call because I'm recruiting, so I cold call, and I have a system in place. So I cold call, follow up with an email, and then I have like a little video so that they can watch that as well. Talk about your thoughts on creating a selling system and what a selling system would look like.
Okay. I think it is critically important that all salespeople have a selling system because we get busy. So the more we're prospecting, the busier we're going to get, and then we might drop off our prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we have to have a system for the entire process, and we have to use our calendar really religiously to make sure that we are doing the things that we want to do. So the follow-up, right? You leave a voicemail message for somebody, you send them an email. You have to have when you're going to follow up. You want to maintain control of the process.
Yes.
And what too many people do is say, they leave the end of the message or the end of the introductory letter with, hey, if this sounds good, give me a call.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my opinion you don't want to do that.
Right.
You want to say, I will follow up in a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I will call to follow up. I will do whatever. So,
right.
If in the meantime you want to reach out, please do. Call me at X.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep control of that, but we want to make sure we've got that system for how are we going to follow up with people we network with? How are we going to follow up with people we've prospected to that, it just doesn't seem like now's a good time, so we're going to let them go. We're going to leave them a message that says, seems like now's not a good time for us to be exploring this. I'm going to, put you in my calendar to follow up in a...
Right. That's great. And I also think by creating a system, it's easier to delegate pieces of the system too, so that other people on your sales team can, for example, take over emailing the client or setting up the appointment.
Absolutely. That's a great point. That is absolutely true. Don't do the things that someone else can do just as well. Yeah.
All right. Another important subject to at least briefly touch on is social media marketing, which seems to be huge in sales. Can you provide some quick tips for listeners on how to handle social media?
Sure. I think you should treat it like you treat all other marketing. It should be permission-based. You shouldn't, I don't think you should, prospect people on LinkedIn, but I think you can do prospecting research on LinkedIn to figure out how you're connected to people. So people's profiles should be completely filled out. And the last thing I'll say about this is think about where your audience is. That's where you want to be. You don't want to spend time marketing on platforms that your audience isn't going to hear your message.
That's a really great point. Especially, it seems like there's so many. It's like as soon as I figured out Twitter, then we had Periscope and Meerkat. And then like as soon as I figured out Pinterest, we have Instagram. So it's like there's so many new platforms coming out constantly that you really have to decide which ones are the customers on and then forget about the rest.
Exactly. That's right.
All right, we have about a minute left. I already know that I am going to, as soon as I get off the show, order Lemonade Stand Selling. I've already taken pages of notes just in a short time span, so dying to kind of delve into the book. But I'm interested in what is your newer book, Expert Insight, all about?
Oh, thanks so much for asking. So Expert Insights is a compilation of 10 of the most listened to episodes of my radio show.
Okay. Wow.
So I took those episodes. There are experts who come on who share their expertise with my listeners. It's different topics. Cold calling is one of them. It's one of the topics. Wendy Weiss does a great job of talking about that. To charisma, customer service, follow-up. There's just all different topics that people have shared their expertise, and it's in that book.
Wow, that's cool. Where can people pick up your podcast? SeizeTheDay.co?
Actually, they can. Well, if they go to the website and they go to the radio page, they can see where it is. But it's on Blog Talk Radio, so it's at blogtalkradio.com/dhelbig.
Okay, blogtalkradio.com/dhelbig. Well, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Jam-packed episode today with all of your stuff that you've shared. Thanks for helping our listeners today.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
That's gonna do it for this edition of Leaders and Legends. Tune in again next weekend for more.